What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Long Run Podcast. This is Adam, and I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the entire world. And we've got a cast of podcast veterans. No podcast debuts here, no newbies. It's all your favorites returning for another show, for an encore, just because I know how much you have requested to see them. Today, we're going to be talking about what could possibly be the most ridiculous movie of the year, but we'll talk more about it and explain how exactly it's ridiculous. And before we even get into that movie, I have to introduce the wonderful people joining me today. Of course, first, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself. It is Austin, a veteran of the podcast, last seen on Zack Snyder's Justice League. How are you doing today, man?
I am good. I am ready for combat. I am ready to talk about the possibly most ridiculous movie of the year. I don't know. Those are bold terms. I mean, I'm sure there's something worse. This wasn't that bad, but I'm ready to talk about it.
I can't wait to hear your thoughts, Austin. I can't wait. And of course, next to Austin, we have Andrew, the fan turned into a podcast veteran. He's the one who's gone on the longest character arc in this journey of the Long Run Podcast. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Get over here!
Oh my! We got the announcers up in here. I'm gonna take that as you being really good today.
Oh yeah, I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. And we haven't seen you since Cobra Kai season 3, so it's good to hear your voice again. Seems like you only come on for the movies where there's physical fights involved.
Hey, that's the best time to come on. So I'm glad to be on today.
And last but certainly not least, we have one of the biggest veterans of our podcast, last seen since on Godzilla vs. Kong, Jurassic Mark, the man with many names, the resident professional. How are you doing today, man?
Pretty good, but I'm afraid I have to go. I need to go consult the elder gods.
Oh no!
Man, you can tell already that this is going to be a podcast that's deep into that MK lore, and what better way than our guest intros to segue right into that? Obviously, all of you have a lot of history with Mortal Kombat as a franchise, so right off the bat, how do you feel about Mortal Kombat as a franchise, whether it be obviously the video games or the movies or even some of the other stuff that's kind of come out like their TV shows and whatnot? How do y'all feel about Mortal Kombat?
Can I start?
Yes, Austin, you can start.
Please do.
This is actually a really nice group to talk about this movie with because these two here are someone that I play the game. I play the game with most often. In fact, my Gary Oak, my rival himself, is this Andrew guy right here, and we have a very storied saga worthy of this franchise. So I think you have quite the members today. And as for my expectations for this film, that was the original question, correct? Expectations?
No. Your history with the franchise.
Well,
Austin.
I've told this story many times, but probably not in a public virtual space. So why don't we immortalize it?
Oh, here we go. Let the people know. Tell them the origin story, Austin.
I'm current. If you ask me right now, I love fighting games. It's part of my. It's a huge part of my fandom and my day to day. And I watch stuff and I read stuff, and that's huge. But that wasn't always the case. It took a very pivotal moment for that to be the new status quo, and I have to thank my dear friend Andrew for that. I will streamline this somewhat. We had Andrew and I worked together long time ago, and
long time ago.
Yeah, and increasingly, he invited me over to his house. I've never really done that. I'm like, all right, sure, let's have fun. We hung out. He's like, we'll play games. That sounds great, and he busted out this new game called Mortal Kombat X. And I'm like, I've been meaning to play this. I've never touched a Mortal Kombat game, but this looks really cool. I want to give it a go. And he's like, great, I'm really good at it. I'm gonna kick your butt. And I'm like, oh, you better not. Oh, and then so we play, and this motherfucker does not give me an inch of breathing room as I touch this brand new game, and he just destroys me because I've never played the game, but he's not letting me do anything or learn or anything. Teleport spam, and And I know he's not that. Like I can do. If I only knew how to play, I could do this. But I got so angry. I got so. And this is not even mentioning the previous Halo session where he also destroyed me, because he's actually really good at Halo, but he destroyed me. And I'm so tilted. I'm like, Andrew, I'm going to find this game. I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to get good, and I'm going to kill you. Mark my words. Like, this is not okay what you just did to me. Now, through the salt mines, I became an FGC person. I became a fighting game person, and I went on in tournament to defeat my Gary Oak, my Andrew, and the rest is history.
Yes, you did.
The rest is history.
The world shall never forget the day that you kicked my ass in revenge for me kicking your ass.
The Jason Alien.
Repeatedly.
So I love this franchise. Am I as knowledgeable of the lore as I'd like to be? Probably not. And my experience with this movie definitely highlights this, and you'll find out more. But sure. I was really looking forward to this, and I was glad I got to see it in the theater with my rival, Andrew.
Really, this is a review about a tale of two lovable brothers coming to terms with the fact that they hate each other, but finding peace through a video game. That's really what it's about. Now,
I feel like the hate is boiling back again, Austin.
This is history. I've got my revenge.
Let's be honest. Does the salt ever go away?
No.
It's enjoyable.
So we've heard Austin's side. Andrew, let's hear your side, man. What's been your experience with Mortal Kombat as a franchise?
All right. Well, for everyone listening, and for everyone here, and I think I told this to Austin already, Mortal Kombat was the very first game I've ever played in my life at the arcade.
Really?
Yep. It was the quarter game that I would go to the arcade and just pop them in and be playing for legit, like, minutes on minutes, turning into hours. Whenever me and my family were living in New York, we would go visit like LBI or Cape May. I'd find the Mortal Kombat arcade system, and I'd just be playing for hours, and I just would not get off. And me and my brother used to play a lot too. So there's a deep, long history of me with Mortal Kombat. I also watched all the movies. They're somewhat forgettable because, I mean, they're not really that great, as everyone knows. And then once I got an Xbox 360 and all of that, I pretty much purchased the newer games, and I just like fell in love all over again. And the fact that I caused a huge rivalry between me and Austin, it just kind of like sparked this deep love for this game and for this whole series. So I remember the YMCA, me inviting Austin over to my house. I'd be like, hey, I was like, hey, please come over. It'll be fun. Him not knowing.
It'll be fun, they said.
Yeah,
come over, they said.
Him not knowing that I had other plans, and 3 hours of me kicking his ass was just a great time. And up to this time now, we still play, and it's just a really good time. Yeah. It's something that I'll never really let go of. But me going into this movie, I had high expectations. I saw the coming attractions for it in the trailers, and I was like, hey, you know what? This actually looks like a really good movie. It looks better than the old ones. And honestly, I don't know how much budget went into this movie, but it definitely was not bad. I don't think it was anything less than 5 stars. That's for sure.
Budget is $55 million. As
5 out of 5.
All right, so conservative budget, but yeah, it did the works for me, and I got to see it with my rival, so I was pretty happy.
For sure, man. And Mark, last but certainly not least, what's been your experience with Mortal Kombat as a franchise, man?
I mean, I've always been kind of aware of it. You know, it's obviously, well, it's up there with like Street Fighter in terms of how, you know, iconic it is,
right?
As far as video games go. I never really got into it beyond that kind of like passive awareness until I got MK9, which I think that worked out exactly how they wanted. Was
Right.
just get
One of the
this
best
is the
games,
jumping
too.
on point. And I got that one. I enjoyed it. Injustice 2, MKX, MK11, now whatever they're doing next. I've just gotten into it. I'm not crazy good, but like I enjoy tooling around with it and seeing what's what. I actually really enjoy the lore aspects because MK, just as a franchise, I appreciate how it simultaneously takes itself way too seriously, but also knows that it's all dumb bullshit. Like it seems like it has a real unique kind of self-awareness about itself,
Mm-hmm.
and that allows it to juggle a bunch of different tones really effectively. And I just with media franchises like this, I don't think you see that too often,
Mm-hmm.
at least as far as the games go. So I like that about it. I have a lot of fun with MK characters and plot stuff.
Absolutely. And have you seen the other movies and stuff like that as well?
I saw the 95 one, I think it is, the
Right.
Paul W.S. Anderson one.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for that one. I think
I do
that
too.
one's
Don't
fun.
worry.
I agree.
I think the only really bad thing about it is that it's PG-13. If it had the blood and gore, then yeah, it captures the tone of Mortal Kombat pretty perfectly, in that it's a corny, melodramatic, like, what if a bunch of American nerds tried making a kung fu movie?
Mhm.
Badly scripted too, man.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of terrible but simultaneously awesome one-liners. Like I unironically love, the whole Goro fight, and
Oh,
Goro's
God.
he's just a giant
Oh,
fuck
man.
off puppet being worn by Tom Woodruff Jr. Johnny Cage punches him in the nuts. Those are $500 sunglasses, asshole. That's great. When he has to go fight Scorpion in the Netherrealm, and like apparently that was added during reshoots because they were like, this fight could go on a bit longer. So the Netherrealm was just like some scaffolding and a fog machine. and every time Scorpion says anything, he has to yell it. So he does the like, get over here, but he also goes like, come down here. And it's like, it's great. His face turns into a skull. It's tons of fun.
One of my favorite parts about that movie is when spoiler alert, by the way, when he kills Shang Tsung, and of course he can't just like let it happen. He has to sit. Yeah, he has to stand on the tower and be like, flawless victory. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. And of course, the best thing that came out of the original MK movie was that song. The song we all know and love.
Yeah.
I do love that song.
Oh, it's so good. So good.
And I mean, speaking of Shang Tsung, like the original, let's just talk about the original one.
Yeah.
Original,
we're actually, this is going to be a review of not the most recent Mortal Kombat. It's actually going to be
you thought we were talking about that Mortal Kombat. No, we're actually talking about Mortal Kombat. No, Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa. That guy is so fucking cool.
Oh,
he's so good. They brought him back for MK11. He's great.
He's great.
Yep.
He hams it up, man.
Things to come. And it's like, shit,
oh man,
what a great villain performance. He knew exactly what kind of movie he was in.
Oh,
and him voicing the Crypt in MK11.
Yeah,
so good.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
That's he's Shang Tsung, and Shang Tsung does a lot of narration in the Crypt when you're exploring around.
Right,
and it is all so great.
It's great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sick.
So for me, my exposure to Mortal Kombat was actually through the movies first. I actually never went to the arcades to play it, unfortunately. But the '95 movie is near and dear to my heart. At one point in my life, I loved the sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It is now looking on one of the most worst movies I've ever seen, but also one of the most hilarious movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It is so funny.
Annihilation is amazing.
It's like it is a sight to behold.
Just some of those line reads. It's like forget how did that get through the editing room. How did they get that out like on set?
My favorite is the whole like, mother, you're alive.
Yes, and now you will die. And it's like, oh my god. Jesus Christ.
Oh god, it's so. It has
Holy
to be seen
shit,
to be
lady.
believed. Like, if you haven't seen Mortal Kombat Annihilation, I highly recommend that you do it.
Rocka in that movie.
Oh, dude,
yeah.
dude,
It's-
the when they turn the animalities in that movie, bro.
Yeah,
those
it's like
special effects.
a sub
Oh my
TV
gosh, they're
budget.
so bad.
When
They're
Shang
so
Tsung,
bad.
he looks like McGruff the crime dog. He's got like floppy ears on his helmet. And when he turns into the snake, it might be my favorite frame from any movie ever. I'm gonna try and find it. But it's Shao Kahn when he turns into the big Hydra thing. There's a Animorphs tween frame where like
Oh no.
his eyes are like 3 feet away from each other on opposite sides of his head, and it's delightful. It looks
Oh.
like the Potion Seller video.
It's so good. So I saw those movies. I didn't actually play Mortal Kombat until Austin, who fresh off of his saltiness from facing Andrew, had told me about how much he needed to beat this person, and so. And so we had started to play Mortal Kombat X among all of our friends, and that was really good time. Shout outs to when Austin would come to Rutgers StarCraft Club every Friday and
Oh,
would just
man.
play Mortal Kombat with random people.
I
And then
was
he would
the
do
creator and runner of the Mortal Kombat X booth at Rutgers Esports, and
Yeah.
I would just try to ingratiate people, these like StarCraft people, these like League people, and they're like, "What's this? Like, this is Mortal Kombat. Would you like to try a fighting game?" And I think I did a pretty good job, but it was a unique experience.
It
I
certainly
was a fixture.
My favorite was always when you do an X-ray attack, you'd be like, "Oh, but you're still alive. Don't worry, you're still
Yeah,
alive."
yeah, that's right.
And I just want to add, the very first time I saw Adam or met Adam,
Yes.
I remember Austin brought me to Adam, and I was just like really nervous. And Adam just goes up to me, and he's like, "So you're the asshole that Austin mentioned, right?"
Oh, man.
I was like, "Oh, so I was called an asshole. I wasn't aware of it."
I mean, I probably only vented to dear Adam. Like, this kid, he wasn't even that good.
Listen, Andrew, you have made Austin so salty. Like, I have never seen him that salty in my entire life. Like, you did a number on him.
It was
man.
life changing.
It
You put me on a
clearly
new
was.
path.
Yeah.
You put me on a new path, buddy. So for better or worse, I am now a fighting game person.
One amazing memory that I have of Austin that night was at the corner of my eye. At the corner of my eye when we're versing each other, and we're in the middle of the fight. And I'm asking him like how he's doing, like how he's enjoying the night. He's like, "Shut up, just shut up!" And he's like all heated and red in the face. And he wants nothing to do with me. He just wants to kick my ass. I'm like, okay. You don't want to talk? I'll keep kicking your ass, boy.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
trash talk.
you can see this was all justified.
You
That
know
was
what's going to
definitely the
happen
match I
after
ever
this?
saw.
What's
What?
going to happen after this is they're going to request to see an exhibition between Austin and Andrew. There's going to be a first to 10 in Mortal Kombat that's going to be requested. I can see it right now.
MKX?
I don't know. Who knows? We'll see what the people want.
That's interesting.
see.
Hey, I will absolutely do that.
Maybe
I
you
will
guys should
definitely
do
be
like
on part.
a nether realm like Olympics sort of thing where you face each other in every
Ooh.
nether realm.
I like that.
That would be
think that'd
really
be so
interesting.
cool.
That would
I like
actually be
that.
really interesting.
The
We
nether realm
recently
Games challenge.
we recently dusted off Injustice 2, and we've been having fun with that.
Right.
I gotta get back into that. I love
It's great.
Injustice 2.
Yeah.
It's great for sure.
It's certainly, you know, I think it is worth noting, even though we were going to be talking about the movie today, that without the resurgence that we've seen from Mortal Kombat in recent years, starting with MK9, we would not have a movie, right? Like,
You're right.
Let's be honest with ourselves, right? Like Mortal Kombat and NetherRealm, you know, credit due to them. You know, shout out to Ed Boon and the rest of the team. They have really put in a lot of work to make Mortal Kombat not only one of the biggest fighting game franchises of all time, but let's be honest with ourselves, it is one of the biggest console games out there, right? Like every time there's a new, whether it be Mortal Kombat or Injustice game that launches, the world notices, right? Like you can say the same thing about your FIFAs and your Call of Duties, but consistently, Mortal Kombat and Injustice are atop the selling charts. And I think that so much of that hype the memories that we've talked about here, especially between Austin and Andrew, is what fueled this movie and what fueled so much of that interest in this movie. So let's just get right into it,
Yeah.
squad. This is a crazy movie, one of the funniest I've seen in a long time because of one particular character. But it doesn't start off that way, right? It starts off in a way that's very, very serious. And I would say it almost feels like a completely different movie. I'll be 100% on that. So
Yeah.
how did you all feel about that intro that features
opening?
Scorpion and Sub-Zero? Correct.
I liked it.
Yeah.
That comes back to what I was talking about, how MK just it's simultaneously very, very self-serious and very, very aware of how stupid it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everything in Mortal Kombat is goofy, like wire fu bullshit, except for Scorpion. Scorpion is the one legitimate tragedy. And then also maybe Sindel, but especially Scorpion because he's cooler.
Scorpion. Yeah.
They treat that very, very seriously. Everything else is an excuse to have monsters and ninjas dive kick each other for an
Basically.
hour. That's what I want out of a Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh, same. And I think we all got a lot at, which we'll talk about for sure. How about you, Andrew? How'd you feel about the opening that really focused on Scorpion?
I actually enjoyed it. I actually remember telling Austin, I think you remember this, that the opening part of the movie was probably one of my favorite parts.
Mhm.
Just getting into his life and his family. Like, I actually didn't really know much about his family and his backstory, so it was kind of cool how they put that together. I felt like they put a lot of time into his like a little bit of his story arc and go into his life, and I thought that
Right.
was pretty cool looking at it.
How'd you feel about it, Austin?
It was, for the first impression of the movie, it was a good one. It was if the whole movie had been that, it would have been it was a very serious tone. I didn't notice anything too over the top where it brought me out. I'm like, oh, this is a fighting game movie, where it was all very emotionally intense, and it seemed very faithful to that kung fu genre, at least to my naive eyes.
Right.
And I remember and this is a running theme throughout the whole movie for me trying to piecemeal my wiki swimming, who this is, what's happening, what are they going to go for, through like the lore bits that I'm aware of. But it was good. It was really good. Super serious, very emotional. Got me caring.
Yeah, I have to agree with all of you. I when I saw this opening, I was like, wow, like you guys really put in the effort. The production design is really, really good. Lots of practical effects. Excuse me. And I think the people that they chose to play Sub-Zero and Scorpion are great. Ryuki Sanada is one of my favorite Japanese actors working today. He always knocks it out of the park. They also got someone from The Raid to be able to play Sub-Zero, which is awesome to see too. So you know that these guys are serious. Yeah. So that was really, really cool to see. And kind of like what all of you were saying, they played that stuff straight. Like, yeah, there's some like superpowers with the ice and all that other stuff. But Mark is absolutely on the money that, like, when you talk about Scorpion, it's always anger, it's always that rage, but also that serious tone. And I think they nailed it. In fact, there's a part of me that almost wants to see more of it, because as we go into the next scene, we get introduced to our hero of this movie, aka Cole. You know, I'm just going to say it right out. I don't like Cole. I think he's one of the worst parts of this movie.
Thank you.
What a boring
Agreed.
character. Like, whose idea was it to have this dude? And of course, hold on, I just want to say this too. With peace and love to Louis Tan, like, I'm sure he did what he could with the script and all that. Like, no hate to you, bro. Like, absolutely not. I'm sure you did what you could, but I don't know who decided, like, yes, let's make this character that's completely original the main character of this movie. So, come on, guys.
Yeah,
like, come on.
I just want to add, he felt like the character that did not belong. Like, the only character that did not belong. Like, I kept telling Austin, I was like during the movie, I was like, who is this guy? Like, I have no idea who he is. Because, like, you don't really get to know who he is and what his powers are. And then at the end, like, when you see his, like, final form and everything, I'm like, all right, what the fuck? His powers kind of, like, suck. Like, I would never play this character. I would never play this character in the actual games. His lines were boring. I really had no interest in his whole family and his whole family story and crap like that.
Yeah.
He really did not he was really awkward in the movie. Just was not a good role for him, and I kind of took it away from me for the movie. But he was probably the only character I didn't like, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Austin, it seemed like you weren't a big fan of Cole as well, and I'm sure you heard Andrew's commentary during the movie. So, how did you feel?
It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize he was an OC. He was not part of the main cast because I'm like, who the fuck is this? What am I missing? But I would have never guessed that they just decided to make someone new. Why? What is the point? I don't know. I didn't think he was awful. I was just disappointed that it wasn't someone I knew for no reason other than just because.
I remember hearing early on that there were some leaks for this, just because, like, with the pandemic and all, this was floating around for a while. And I remember hearing, I forget if it was an outright leak from, like, a test screening or just one of the original rumors, but the idea was that it's kind of what happens in the final movie where he's revealed to be Scorpion's ancestor. Mm-hmm. But originally it was going to be that he was the reincarnation of Scorpion, and Scorpion gets killed, like old school, like ghost
the one
Scorpion
from the opening
ends up, like that Scorpion ends up dying. He gets like fatally wounded or something and makes a deal to become the new Scorpion, and that was going to be the whole thing, but I guess they went in a different direction. I remember also hearing a thing about how, like, do we want to talk about Johnny Cage? Do we want to just bust that out right now?
Let's just say it. Let's just say it.
Because here's the thing: is it feels like they really got in their own way with this.
Yeah.
Because you look at, like, why you know, big glaring omission. Where's Johnny Cage?
Yeah.
You know, and you look at their justification for why Johnny Cage isn't in here, and there are two main reasons that I could find.
Mm-hmm.
Where one was, he was saying, the director was saying, like, well, he's a very big personality,
right?
You know, he's takes up a lot of the spotlight, and you know, if you have him and Kano in the same environment, that could be a little bit much in terms of comic relief.
Sure.
You know, he's not super important to the grand plot of MK with the tournament and Outworld and all that, but he gets a lot of the screen time. And it's like, okay, I get that. But don't make Kano a good guy for half the movie. Kano's a villain. He doesn't have to. You don't have to have him share the stage with Johnny Cage. They could be completely different characters in completely different places.
Right.
Johnny Cage works because he's the audience proxy. He's not a secret agent, and he's not a Shaolin monk. He's just an average dumbass idiot. So when somebody needs to explain what Outworld is, Johnny Cage is usually the one that they explain it to, because he doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
And neither does the audience. So by getting rid of him, you create this vacuum. Well, now we need an audience proxy. So let's just create a guy who may as well just be Johnny Cage if he isn't funny. and that's this guy's whole deal. Is he's the fish out of water that people can explain to him what Mortal Kombat is, but also he can't make jokes because that's Kano's job, and it's only Kano's job because now Kano is one of the good guys until he betrays them in the third act. And it's like a lot of just like weird, like, but why did you just make MK9? This movie was already made. Just trim it down to a cool 90, 120 minutes.
Yeah.
And your job is done. So I don't know. It's confusing. I don't understand those kinds of Hollywood decisions.
Yeah. And I had heard as well that, like, credit to them, one thing they said is like, oh, we have enough blockbusters that are led that don't have a minority lead sort of thing, so they wanted to do change.
Right.
And like, I think that's like a noble like thing to want.
Their heart's in the right place.
like that's like, yeah, like, I see what you tried to do, but like it didn't work out. Like,
but I also, that was my other thing too, is I feel like this is the wrong franchise to do that for. Yes. Because I could be totally wrong here, but I feel like nobody of Asian descent is looking at Mortal Kombat and being like, my heritage.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
the first game was explicitly like a bunch of white dudes who liked kung fu movies and anime and exploitation films. Was like, what if we put all this together in one big thing? And that's why Sub-Zero was a Chinese ninja, you know. And it's like, yeah, like China, they do the kung fu, right? And like that's how it was presented in the early games, and only now when it's become this big thing, now they have to be like, okay, let's take this a little more seriously. Here's why this is all the way it is, because this is how the lore works. And it's like, I
Right.
don't think, like, I get what they were going for, but I don't think anybody would have cared, especially if they used one of the big inspirations to the original Mortal Kombat, which was Big Trouble in Little China. That's the perfect deconstruction of that kind of burly white guy has an ethnic adventure
Right.
plot.
Ooh, I still gotta
Because
watch that.
if you haven't seen it, it's fucking tremendous. But
It's a
the
classic.
whole point that everybody realizes when they finally watch it is, oh, Kurt Russell isn't the main hero. He's kind of a bumbling dumbass. He
Okay.
gets all the cool one-liners, but the whole point is that he's a buffoon, and his sidekick is the one who actually kicks ass and has all the stakes in the plot. And Ed Boon and all those guys at now NetherRealm were big fans of that movie, and that's why the Johnny Cage and like Liu Kang dynamic is basically just Big Trouble in Little China. It's just a loudmouthed idiot who's going on a magical kung fu adventure, and he has no idea what's going on, and he's completely out of his depth, and that's his character. And it's like, this could have been a great little deconstruction, but I don't know. I guess they made the calls they made, you know.
Yeah. It obviously too late now to kind of change. And again, like nothing against the actor who played Cole. Like I just
Yeah, of course.
it's
He did
clearly
his
just
best.
like a problem in the script
Yeah.
sort of
I
thing.
don't think he did that
actually-
bad.
I
Go
just
ahead,
want
Aaron.
to add something with Cole. I actually, after the movie and even now, I'm thinking about it. The directors and the producers and the writers of the script had a lot of potential with him. They could have used him for something, but I felt
Right.
like they didn't know where he belonged in the movie,
Right.
and they didn't know where he was going either. So you just like follow him along in the movie, and you're just completely confused the entire time, and he just felt completely out of place whenever he was around the other characters. It felt like they didn't know what to do with the guy, even though they made him.
Yeah, like there's sorry. There's this whole thing about like, right, like, oh, well, first off, first thing we see, this dude ain't even that good at fighting. So you're just like,
No.
why is he a champion, right? And
Sucks.
then like, and then it turns into like, oh, I see, we're supposed to care about him because he has a family. I've seen this trick before, right?
Yeah.
And then it turns into a whole like, oh, will he, won't he stay committed to this woman? It's like, guys, we already know what's gonna happen. We know he's gonna come back. Like, we don't need to do this whole thing. Like, there is no tension. And not only that, kind of like what Mark said, there's nothing likable about Cole. He doesn't crack jokes, right? Like
He's just kind of there.
he's like he has like the personality of a piece of cardboard. Like,
Yeah.
and again, no offense to Louis Tan, bro, you seem like a great guy. Just like that when your movie is centered around this character, like there's no wonder why everyone talks about how great Kano is or some of the other characters are, because they actually have personalities and are actually like light up when they're on the screen sort of thing. Whereas Cole is just kind of there and just like, oh, it's like, come on, guys, like this could be a little bit better sort of thing. But awesome, were you gonna say something about Cole?
No, I just thought that I don't blame the actor. The actor did a fine job.
Yeah,
It
I
was
agree.
just the character. That's the everyman sometimes becomes the boring guy.
And even at the end, I was like, I hope they connect him, because like I remember at the beginning of the movie, even though you saw like Scorpion's wife and I think he had a son, that they both died
Yes.
by the hands
Right.
of Sub-Zero, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if they connect him to the Scorpion line, that would be sick. That'd be a good way to end this film and put this character, give him a place in this movie. And they didn't even do that, and then he just winds up being this really shitty character with really shitty powers, and I'm like, all right, this guy should not have been in the movie at all.
Yeah. So we're introduced to Cole. He loses his fight, blah blah. Clearly a guy down on his luck sort of thing. And then we get to the scene that's actually kind of cool, right? Where he's eating with his family. Then suddenly it starts snowing. Which, by the way, you would think that everyone there would be like, "What the hell? It's snowing when we're like SoCal or whatever." But whatever. And then we have Jax kind
Oh,
of come in and save them, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns into a whole little chase. But then Jax tells them to go ahead and meet up with his partner, Sonya Blade, while he holds off Sub-Zero. It turns into this whole fight sort of thing. How'd you all feel about that sequence, particularly the fight between Jax and Sub-Zero round one?
so can I just say that probably the strongest bits of this movie for me were almost always Sub-Zero.
Mm.
Yes.
I think they did a fantastic job at creating a sense of sinisterness when it
Right.
comes to
Yeah.
this foreboding, unstoppable ice guy. Because like even where he's just eating, he's eating fast food with the family. It's his wife and his daughter, and it starts snowing in California. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And then it's
Yeah.
this like shadowy figure appears. I think they did an excellent job, and it was probably the most. I don't want to say emotion, but like I felt tension probably the most when it comes to almost every Sub-Zero scene until the end. But that was probably the best, and I think they did a fantastic job with making him this scary thing that this poor guy knows nothing about. He's hunting him down. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
As
How
for the
about-
Jax fight, I mean,
Yeah.
from what I remember, it was fine. It was good to see Jax on screen. I knew what terrible fate awaited him, and it happened. And then I remembered what I was watching.
Yeah.
No,
What about you,
I
Andrew?
do. I am a big fan
Oh, go
of
ahead, Mark.
Sub-Zero just being
Yeah.
a big piece of shit.
Yeah.
His mask looked really stupid in this, but everything else about him, they nailed. He was great.
Yeah, I actually 100% agree. How about you, Andrew? What did you think about this fight in particular?
I have to second that with Austin. Joe Taslim was the guy's name, right?
Yep, Joe Taslim.
I don't know how many movies I've seen him in, but he played a mean Sub-Zero. He played a really mean Sub-Zero, and he literally like blew it out of the park. Probably one of the best characters portrayed in that entire movie. Outside of
I agree.
Kano, probably get into him later. But man, Sub-Zero did a really good job. He did a great job being the villain. He was pretty much like the entire movie. Like I looked forward to every scene that he was in. The scene with him and Jax, the first fight, that was pretty cool. That was like I was like, wow, this is gonna get really serious now. Like we have this whole villain set up now, and now there's like a whole story happening, and I was just enjoying the ride from there on.
Yeah, I think it does a really good job of kind of what Austin was saying and what all of us are saying. It establishes Sub-Zero as this threat, right? Like obviously we saw him in the opening, but it does a good job of kind of showing one the indicators of what's going to happen, right? As soon as we see the ice or the snow, like all right, we know who's here, sort of thing. But also, I think that the actor who played Jackson Briggs, hold on, let me see, his name is, where are you? Briggs. Okay, I guess I just don't know his name. Mikad Brooks. I'm sorry. I hope that I pronounced that right. I think he did a really good job. Like when Sub-Zero like freezes his arms and you could see the look of terror on his face. It was like, oh, dude, like he did a really good job of kind of selling it, right? Especially because of how brutal it is. And that's one thing I love about this movie now that's rated R. Kind of like what Mark was saying before. You all love the '95 movie. You know, it's a classic in some ways, but
Yeah.
it also was held back because of that PG-13 rating. And luckily now we live in an age where blockbusters can be rated R. And obviously Mortal Kombat as a franchise, you kind of have to go rated R because of the content of those games. And I think finally it's good to see so much of what we know from the games kind of on screen and in full glorious HD, that sort of thing. Now, granted, of course, they can't do everything you do in the games because I think everyone would be a little horrified if they actually saw that in real life, right?
They wouldn't be able to put it in the theaters, man.
Yeah. Definitely not something that I think anyone would actually want to see, but they do a good job there. And one thing I do like about this movie that I'm sure we'll talk about as well, the pace of this movie is relentless. It is one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And that's good because you don't really get bored. From a script perspective, it doesn't really do a good job of developing the characters. But like, guys, it's Mortal Kombat. What are we expecting here? What do we want?
It felt like almost at times Michael Bay was directing this movie with
Oh,
less
yes.
explosives. Like it was just a really fast, fun summer or early summer movie. Just really quick and lots of fight scenes and pretty fun. You know, it might have not been well scripted, but it was a fun movie.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. And speaking of fun, we have Cole going to the hideout of Sonya Blade, and of course, our favorite is tied up there, Kano. So they do the whole
Yeah.
exposition thing.
Yeah.
They kind of explain what's going on, blah blah blah. I'm not 100% sure if like their explanation of what's going on is accurate to the lore of the games. Maybe Andrew or Mark, you can confirm that. I think it was like a ballpark correct, right?
It's as far as I can tell, this was all just like with like the dragon tattoos and all that.
It was like the dragon tattoos and explain like, oh, this is what Mortal Kombat is. We've done this number of times. We've lost 9 times.
Generally, yeah. The dragon tattoos I think are new just because they needed an excuse to get everybody together.
Right.
So it's like, all right, Jax is made out of magic now. Kano is magic. Everything's magic.
Mm-hmm.
But like the general idea of there's a bunch of different realms. There's a tournament. Whoever loses the tournament gets shit on. That's it.
Well, yeah.
But I also want to point out there's no tournament in this movie.
I was wondering when we're going to talk about this. Go ahead, Mark.
This is another one of those, like, why are you getting in your own way things? It's like, okay, you're making a Mortal Kombat movie. And you don't necessarily want to put in a lot of effort, let's say. Let's look at this very cynically for a moment and just say, like, they want to make a Mortal Kombat movie, and they don't care about characters, they don't care about reinventing the wheel. They just want to string a bunch of fight scenes together and sell tickets. That's literally what a tournament is. It's just a series of fight scenes. And I guarantee you, if that's what this movie was, if it was 90 to 100 minutes of just fight after fight after fight on Shang Tsung's island, people would be giving this a 10 out of 10. I don't get why they do that. It feels like a movie that would have come out in, like, the early 2010s or, like, the late aughts.
Yes.
Where they had that whole trend of like, we're going to adapt this thing, but that's too weird. So this is the story of how that thing became the thing. And if you want to see the real thing, you better come for the sequel in 2 years. And it's like, I don't care about any of this.
I think that's what they were doing. I think that's what
I
they were doing.
I don't
for
care.
This movie. They were setting the story.
They said outright. They wanted to make a trilogy. They're like, this is the first one. They were like, this is the pre-tournament. Then the second one is the first one, and then the third one will be the second one. And it's like, well, how's about just make the game? Just make the thing that I like. There's a classic Patton Oswalt bit about that. It's like, I don't care how the thing I like got how it was. Just make the thing I like. Put a man in a scorpion costume and have him punch a man in a Sub-Zero costume, and I'll be happy. I don't need to learn how they got to the tournament. I assume they just went there because that's their job.
I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room. Okay, if they just adapted Mortal Kombat: Scorpion's Revenge and just turned that into a live action movie, it would have been fine. Like this is exactly what happened with Suicide Squad. Right? If they just did Batman: Assault on Arkham as a Suicide Squad movie, everyone would have been happy. Everyone would be like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. This is great. But no, but we have to like reinvent the wheel and do this whole thing. Like, no, we can't actually show the tournament. God, what's wrong with you? We have to show what happens before the tournament. It's like, guys, like, why?
And it sucks because the first tournament, all the stuff on Shang Tsung's island is really, really fun.
Yeah.
I love that as a setting because it's got like, because it's video game shit. So it's like, ooh, here's the spooky bridge, and here's the beach, and here's the throne room, and it's got all these cool little locations, and it's like the Scooby-Doo movie, where the whole fun of that is like, ooh, they're on this wacky island. It's the same deal. Now it's just a bit, yeah. It's Warner Brothers property. When's Shaggy getting added? But it's like you have this fun premise with this fun setting and this fun cast of characters. And it's like you have most of the characters, none of the premise, and none of the settings. I got the movie pulled up now, and it was just the third act Goro fight. And he's fighting Goro in, like, a shed.
yeah.
outside of like a rural shack.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is Goro here? I know it would be more expensive to have him be in like a fantastical cavernous throne room, but like maybe you don't make Mortal Kombat then. Maybe this is the wrong franchise for this budget. Because the whole thing is about kung fu ninjas and monsters fighting in hell and in castles and in big exotic locales. It's an expensive thing to make visually, and if you're not going to at least try to commit, then maybe don't make it.
Austin,
what they
how
should
do you
have
feel?
done. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just adding on to Mark's, what they should have done was just get rid of Cole completely. Because that way Goro wouldn't have gone to that shack to begin with to do that whole fight. Because Cole kind of ruined the whole part of the movie, and it made the movie like kind of awkward on the place settings and like where everything was taking place.
Yeah, I agree. Like from the outset, when you make Cole the main character, you have to focus so much on developing him when he's like just a piece of cardboard sort of thing. And it takes away from a lot of the other elements of the movie that they really could have highlighted and not only done for the fans, but also just anyone just watching the movie would have been more interested than doing this whole pre-tournament thing. But Austin, how'd you feel, man? What'd you think?
You're asking me specifically how I felt about how there's no Mortal Kombat in Mortal Kombat?
Correct.
I completely agree that it would have been more fun. I played a mean Goro in MKX. And Goro. And
this is Austin saying see me in that game.
Yeah, please. And I get excited when he showed up on screen? I guess a little, but I think I would have been so much more hyped with the gravitas of an actual Mortal Kombat going on a spooky island with all sorts of weird things. For him to show up randomly at in the shed and all that, it reminded me a lot of, if you'll recall, Terminator 3 and how the first encounter of Arnie and TX had him being tossed around at a veterinarian hospital, which is kind of cool. But I distinctly remember Arnie being flung into like a shed by her like plasma caster add-on, and it reminded me of that. Where I don't know, not that was a bad thing, but that was what I got instead of Spooky Island. I'm primed for weird things to happen. Then I get big weird thing that I already know I like. Oh, this is awesome. But I didn't. And instead I have strange scene of 12-foot Goro, which, I mean, I know he was infamously terribly made in the old movies. So I am kind of happy to see him made again, even though I had no problem with the puppet.
But I gotta be honest, I love that puppet. I'm watching that scene now, and it's like...
Is it better?
The difference is so drastic.
Oh, we lost
Did you lose
Mark.
me?
Hold on. We lost Mark. Oh, Mark, you there?
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Oh yeah, I think the thing shows up for a second. No, it's like I'm watching the scene now, and it's like everything's shot at a Dutch angle, and there's all kinds of like dynamic lighting.
Right.
And then he shows up in silhouette, and there's just a bunch of like shirtless dudes with like masks and pitchforks all chanting his name. He comes out and he's like flexing and kissing his muscles and shit.
I like that a lot.
He's great. There's so much build up. In this one, it's like, he's just a big CGI monster, man.
I don't even think he talks in this one, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he shouts a few things, right?
He talks a little bit, but like this one, he's clearly like he's the warrior prince. He's clearly a big shit talker.
You know, like that was lost for sure.
There's a moment in the Goro fight in this new one that it sums up, I think, the spirit of what's wrong with this movie for me. And there's a part where he's got Cole Young, whose friendship bracelet has just turned into a set of armor.
Yeah,
and he's got him on the ropes.
Terrible, by the way. That armor looked.
It looked like
awful.
Shit. It sucked.
Awful.
Yeah, Goro's got him, and he's getting ready. He's getting ready to do that one like fatality. I think it's called like Make a Wish or something like that, where he just grabs each limb with an arm and just pops them off, so they're a little stump person. And like he's getting ready to do that, And then like Cole's like girlfriend or whatever is like, I'm going to help, and she picks up like a fire axe and goes and hits Goro with it. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, why is Goro getting hit with a fire axe by some literally who? Like it felt like such a Hollywood misunderstanding the appeal of this thing. It's like, I don't like. Is that what you would probably do if Goro attacked you at your residential home? It's like, yeah, but why is Goro at my residential home? Why isn't he in some kind of crazy dungeon? Why is that some random woman hitting him with a fire axe and not like a ninja or a lizard or a ghost hitting him with, I don't know, a throwing star? I don't know, something wacky, you know?
Right.
It's very bland and mundane, and looks like they very clearly wanted to save some money on this.
Oh, absolutely. What were you going to say, Andrew?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, completely agree with Mark. The Goro scene kind of brought me back to the days where I went to go see The Last Airbender, because Avatar: The Last Airbender is my second favorite show of all time. And I remember watching The Last Airbender, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I just almost felt like nauseous. And I'm like, what am I watching?
Right.
And there was plenty of that in this movie. And I really didn't want that to be the scene with Goro, because Austin was getting all excited. He was like, oh, like he was looking at the screen getting all excited. And he gets defeated in like a minute. And I'm like, oh, they really shit on this movie using Goro like that. And it just really brought me back to the days going in that movie theater, watching The Last Airbender, and M. Night Shyamalan, you fucking disaster of a person.
It's just a lot. It looks, a lot of this movie, like, for as bad as the 95 one looks, you could see where the money went. There's some big sets in that. There's a lot of extras.
Right.
This one, it felt very, very cramped. Like, even when they're in the Shaolin training caves or whatever, even that felt really small. The Goro fight felt really small. The final battles all feel very small. I don't know if that was to try and emulate it being like, oh, it's like a fighting game. Like, there's just this one screen, but something tells me that wasn't the intent. It feels like they had a blue screen and assumed that's all they needed, when they could have put so much more character into this.
Yeah, and also too, like, going off of this Goro fight scene, like, Cole's finally about to get his powers, and like, there's a part of me that was like, oh, good, let's see what he's got. Like, maybe it's gonna be something cool. And it's like this horrible looking set of armor, like me and Mark have already said, and he gets a pair of tonfas. Tonfas. It's like, guys, like
I'm not a martial artist. I'm sure tonfas are very dangerous weapons, but
with peace and love,
tonfas in a Mortal Kombat game. Not.
It could be. It could be.
They're upgraded. They're upgraded dildos, my friend. They're upgraded dildos.
No, come on.
They absolutely suck.
Your Arcana is heat vision. Liu Kang, you can shoot fireballs. Kung Lao, you can teleport. Cole, have these sticks.
And
you can spin them around. If you smack them with them, then it'll hurt them real bad.
It's like, come on, guys.
Now,
it's like, oh, thanks,
I think tonfas can be perfectly deadly in a game with Bo Ride Show, where he uses his walking cane
and
his farts to do deadly things. So I say,
Bo Ride Show apologist. I love Bo Ride Show.
I did some good stuff with Bo Ride Show in our resurgence in MKX with Andrew. I had a good time with him. He's deadly.
What we're learning here today, like I said before, is Austin is saying, see me in that game. He's going to take on any and all comers, any challengers.
That's right, yeah. Public venue.
You know what the real problem with Cole's powers are? It's not even that he has upgraded dildos as weapons. It's the very fact that they show everyone else's powers that are so much cooler. You're looking at all the jocks in the school, all the popular cheerleaders, all the smartest people in the school. And then you come up and you see this one guy in the way back, and he has like a pencil that's not even sharpened. And you're just like, dude, you just don't belong. Just go home, and you literally just ruined my life for the next 20 years. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
what Cole did to me.
Cole down bad in this movie. Cole absolutely
Cole
down
was
bad.
horrible. It was horrible.
It's just the problem with this movie is just the tone, because it feels like they approached this being like, all right, now people take Mortal Kombat real seriously, so we got to make it cool. And it's like Mortal Kombat is absolutely not cool, but that's what makes it cool.
Right.
It's at the end of the day, it is at its best when it's guys dressed in pajamas and monster masks, like bicycle kicking each other. And the fact that it's so unapologetically that is what makes it cool. Don't try to make it like this ain't your dad's Mortal Kombat, because then you'll just embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what they tried to do here. They tried to make it have the same kind of cool factor as like a Fast and the Furious movie, because I think James Wan is actually a
he was a
producer
director
on this.
Yeah, he directed Furious 7, and James Wan is a producer on this.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like what you said before, Mark, right? Where it was so much of like, oh, let's reinvent the wheel and like make this difference, but like why? Like, so as you remember, I think we touched on it a little bit before, like with Cole's powers, but in general, they in this movie, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not in the games, right? Where they say that like you have an arcana and everyone has like their own like magic power or whatever, and it's
I
like,
don't believe so. Yeah,
and it's
Nobody.
like,
No.
why do we need this explanation? Like why not just do this whole thing where, hey, like, oh, this person has fireballs, or oh, this person, he has a laser, right? Like why do we need this whole thing about like, oh, you need to like find yourself or whatever and like find your magic power? Like I don't understand the logic of trying to shoehorn in this thing. Like it does not make any sense to me.
People will buy whatever as long as it's presented confidently. And I think that's something that the recent games have gotten down pat like really, really well. Is because you look at somebody uh Cabal, I think is a great example. In the games, like he could just like run fast, and nobody goes, "Wow, what happened? What can you? How can you do that? You're running so fast." They don't even call attention to it. It's like, yeah, it's Cabal. He runs fast. This is Kenshi. He's blind and can psychically control his sword. Why? Why? What's his origin? Shh! It doesn't matter. Shut the fuck up. Reptile is here now. None of this matters. well, why can Johnny Cage turn green? It doesn't matter. He could just do that. That's not what's important. What's important is the tournament. Don't worry about it.
You're so right.
Nobody cares why can Kano, why is Kano a cyborg? Doesn't matter. Because cyborgs are cool. Doesn't matter.
What were you going to say, Austin?
I really didn't mind the in-movie explanation of you can't choose how your powers manifest, and then Kano gets his eye lasers. Like, that's what I get. All right, and then he gets his eye lasers, and then Cole gets his tonfas. But I don't know. I didn't mind it. I don't know the actual. I'm sure there is some sort of lore explanation for chi of some kind, but I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it. It kind of gave me a random element, and maybe, oh, okay, so it's just eye lasers because that just happens to be how Kano manifests his inner thing. Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it.
Too bad Cole got the shit end of the stick, but go ahead.
It's an odd reinvention, because it's like, with the people who were going to see this Mortal Kombat movie, would anyone have complained if Kano showed up and he was a cyborg? Or if Sonya showed up and she had the little ring that could shoot purple laser beams out of it?
Right.
It's like, this is just a thing that they have.
Right.
But I feel like you show that to like a Hollywood type, and they'd be like, "Well, this doesn't make any sense." And it's like, I know, it's a fighting game.
So, one thing I do want to backtrack, because we did skip a little bit by talking about the Goro fight.
Yeah, we're all over.
How'd you all feel about the reptile fight? Because I thought it was a good scene, and I'll say this, like, Kano owns every scene that he is in.
Kano's
like,
fucking great.
Yes.
He owns everything. When he is on screen, everyone like that. He just captures everyone's attention.
Every single time Kano's on scene, he's like, "I'm the captain now. I'm in charge of this scene. He's the lead. He's one of the main leads in this movie. He carried it on his back.
Yes.
Him and Sub-Zero.
Kano is
And
what
that-
they wanted
pretty sick
Captain
fight,
Boomerang to be.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
you're right. That's true. That scene was pretty cool, by the
No,
way.
I actually, yeah, no, I really dug the Reptile fight. I'm not a fan of they keep making Reptile more and more of like an animal instead of a weird like lizard man.
Mhm.
So I'm not huge on that design, but I think this was actually a very fun action sequence. I like that well. There's the whole bit where he stabs a road flare into Reptile so they could follow him around even when he's invisible.
Right.
And it's like, that's creative. That's fun. I'm having fun with this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. How'd you feel?
You get the Kano fatality. It's great.
Oh, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, that was good. You asking me about Kano?
No, about the reptile fight, like that, just that fight in general.
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
Remember he was invisible?
yeah, he was. Yes, and he was skulking. They were indoors.
Yep.
It was okay.
Kano was tied up. Yeah,
That's right. Fine. Nothing spectacular.
mm-hmm.
Nothing spectacular. I seem to recall Reptile also being like first level boss in the previous movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fine. I don't think Kano. Again, they departed from I think canon with Kano being there at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fine. No issues.
Yeah. I'm glad that Kano came in. So obviously they talk, blah blah blah. They defeat Reptile. That's one thing that like does kind of suck about these games. It's not these games, these movies. That they sometimes they'll kill off like quote unquote big characters like Reptile and I suppose Goro too. Just like damn, we wasted him on the first movie sort of thing. But it is a video game, so I'm sure they could come up with any dumb reason.
Everybody comes back. Yeah. Bring in Quan Chi in the next one, and all the dead characters can come back.
Yeah,
Revenants.
There you go.
Exactly. So they travel. Kano's hilarious. Like all of his lines are so funny on the way there. And they finally meet up with like the random like Earth Champion temple in the desert. With Liu Kang and Kung Lao there. And like, how'd you guys feel about Liu Kang and Kung Lao in this movie?
Did not mind them. Did not mind them. I think there were some instances where I don't know if maybe it was the actors, it was probably more the script, but some things fell flat for me with humor a lot of the time. Right. But I think they looked the part fantastically. They were really these super buff dudes who seem to know what they're doing. I imagine they do, and that was good. I even though I think it's funny, I was just saying how like, oh yeah, I didn't mind the in movie explanation for power origin, but I guess Kung Lao got hat powers for that same mechanism. He's like, well, all of a sudden I could do amazing things with hats.
Yeah,
and I guess that's kind of funny, but I didn't mind him
for sure. How about you, Andrew?
All right, so I just want to say that the people that chose these actors to play them, to portray these characters, they chose pretty spot on looking characters. Spot on looking guys for their characters, but again, it was completely the fault of the writers. It's almost as though these lines that they were saying throughout the movie, they were just like really dry, and not all the lines like really stuck with me. And I was like, oh, like this is getting like cheesy. I mean, this movie is guys, whoever's listening, this movie is cheesy. But it gets cheesier with some of these characters, and these two characters definitely made it cheesier.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Mark?
No, they're quite good. I especially really like who was that who played Kung Lao?
Kung Lao is
Max Huang.
Yeah, Max Huang.
Like.
Huang. That's Huang.
Yeah, no, because I really like Kung Lao in the games in general. I think they never do enough with him because he's got a lot of potentially interesting stuff. But there's one shot in this that I love. It's when
Flawless
Shang
victory.
Tsung and his little goon squad show up at the Shaolin Temple, and they're all having their little punch up.
Yep.
And there's a bit where he goes right for Shang Tsung, which is really fun character moment. But then he ends up fighting Natara,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets one of the better kills in the movie. I think.
Yeah,
He does
that's a fatality from the game, right?
Yeah, the classic little MK9 buzzsaw thing on the where he throws the hat on the ground, which that was arguably the most violent thing. I think either that, the Jax scene, or the other Jax scene.
The other Jax scene.
Yeah, it's probably the most violent this movie gets. And I love seeing that kind of horrific bloodshed in a mainstream release nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, it's probably some of the only practical blood in the movie, because there's a shot where he's surfing her into the hat.
Yeah.
And she's getting split down the middle, and it just cuts to a close-up of his face, and he's got this big goofy grin on, and he's just getting covered in fake blood. Like, it looks like a shot from Samurai Cop. It's hilarious. And I don't know, that one little bit always makes me laugh whenever I see it.
Oh, it was great.
Flawless victory.
Oh, it was great.
He does the little flicks the blood off the blade, flawless victory, and it's like, you're having fun.
Yeah,
you're having fun, so I'm having fun. This is
exactly.
The fun part.
That's like what we were saying before. Like, when this movie actually embraces the fact that it's a video game movie and just has fun with it, it's great. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite parts of the movie is when they're training and then they do the whole thing that everyone has done before, where like they always sweep the leg, and then like Kano gets hit by it twice, and he's like, "God, you can't just keep on doing the same move over and over again." And then like he jumps over it to dodge it, and then as soon as he comes back down, to sweep again. It's so good. He
spams him in the corner. It's like moment. If the whole movie had that tone, this would be an A+. This would be great. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the other thing too. Is I really think for as good for the most part as the action is, for as gory as it gets,
right?
A lot of CGI.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like digital blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard to do practical blood, and I think it would have added a lot to the action in this if they were actually getting covered in stuff, because that happens in the games too.
Yeah,
is they retain battle damage and stuff between rounds,
and
it's like, I don't know, it just, whenever it feels like a cartoon, it sucks. But whenever there's some real grit to it, then you get the satisfying payoff of, you know, seeing a bat lady be fed headfirst into a bandsaw. And then it's like, all right, good show.
For sure. And you know, as we get introduced to Liu Kang and Kung Lao, we see a lot more of Raiden. And I don't know how you guys felt. I feel like Raiden was very odd in this movie, and I wasn't sure if this is how he is in the game. So I'd love to hear you guys' take. Like, it felt like he was like not really helping at all. It was just like, Raiden, I thought you were like the manager here. Like, what is happening?
Well, all right, so I was with you until you're like, well, he wasn't even helping, but I feel like that is where the meme comes from. Like, I must consult with the elder gods.
Blunder god.
Yeah. And he goes to ask for assistance and advice, because that is typically Raiden. Yeah. But I do agree that I don't know how happy I was with the portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
He was like hardly in this.
Yeah.
Like, the problem with the guy that played Raiden is supposed to be, I don't know. No disses to the actor.
The actor, of course.
But you're supposed to be the alpha. Like, Raiden is definitely the alpha. Like, he is in charge. Everyone knows it, and he's always there. And this Raiden is like, I'm Raiden, and then you never see him again. And he just didn't, like Cole. Like, why is he in the movie if he's not really in the movie? Like, he just didn't really feel like he belonged in the movie,
right?
Almost.
Yeah, it was.
See, Andrew, you and me have different reads on Raiden. You view him as the alpha. He's in charge. He knows he's in charge. I look at Raiden and I just hear like the opening to Arrested Development, where it's like, and the one son who's trying to keep them all together.
Yeah,
It's-
yes.
And it's like that's when Raiden's at his best in the games for me, is when he's just frantically teleporting around, being like, "Oh fuck, oh shit, oh god, oh no." And it's like you have him in this one, and he doesn't really have much to do. Like, it's hard to criticize because whenever I say what he does, it sounds like, oh yeah, that's what Raiden's supposed to do. But it's difficult because it's like
Raiden is the Superman for Mortal Kombat. He's supposed to be around, and he's supposed to be he's supposed to take charge in some way. He didn't really take charge in this movie.
he's supposed to have, like, you know, Raiden walks in, right, and he's in his kitchen, and he's like, oh, I hope my boss likes these cupcakes I made for him. I really need that promotion. And he looks down at, like, his mischievous cat, and he's like, now don't touch these cupcakes, I'll be right back. And then he comes back, and his house is burned down. And that's a day in the life of Raiden. And he's like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
I left it here for 5 minutes, and now Quan Chi controls everyone's souls.
Yeah,
Oops.
see, that's the thing. Like, Raiden he's got super charisma. You know, he's such a voice for sure.
Right.
But I think it even becomes a plot point eventually where his failures begin to creep up, and the cast begins to resent him for it, and how he has failed to protect Earth effectively.
Well, that was the whole thing with MK9, because he sends a message to himself in MK1, and all he can get across is he must not win. So Past Raiden hears that and is like, okay, I need to prevent something from happening. All I know is he must not win, and I'm at a fighting tournament with like 50 dudes.
Yeah.
I'm going to try my best to piece this together, and then cut like 3 hours later, and he's accidentally set Liu Kang on fire, and as he dies, Liu Kang's going, "You've murdered all of us, Raiden, you fucking idiot."
Which just goes back to what we said before about how don't ever take the game seriously, because they don't take themselves seriously at all.
It's great. It's cranking it up, cranking the absurdity so far up that in its own logic, it becomes kind of compelling and endearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Raiden's there, and then, like, you know, he says hi and then, like, leaves, kind of thing, right?
He's like, "Hi, you guys suck," and then he teleports away.
He just, like, pieces out, sort of thing. So then they do the whole training montage, and then one of my favorite scenes in the movie, one of the more quiet ones, I should say, like, that wasn't action, is like when they're all eating dinner, and
Yes.
like Kano just keeps on saying, like,
"Give me
like,
fucking egg roll."
like, let's be honest, like, let's be honest, like, there was definitely some racist stuff in there, but at the same time, it was still hilarious.
It's great.
I was still laughing.
I think
He's a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
I think that's the reason Kano works in this, is specifically because this is an R-rated movie,
right.
so they can get away with him actually being like a real piece of shit. Like,
Yeah.
that was one of the problems with, like, the Suicide Squad, because Captain Boomerang is that's just a type, is just Australian shitbag.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And, like, you look at a Suicide Squad, and it's like, I kind of liked Captain Boomerang in that. But you look at some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and it's like, oh, he was going to be much more of a piece of shit. Like, he was going to be openly racist. He was going to be openly misogynist. He was going to be real skeezy. But then, you know, they were like, well, this is a PG-13 superhero movie, so we can't have our villains being too unlikable. So reel that back in a little bit. This one, it's like, no, he's just, like, openly propositioning Sonya. He's openly racist to all the Asian characters.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. And it's like, that's great. I like that Kano is allowed to be a piece of shit in this, because it allows him to be as funny as he can be.
The rated R aspect of this movie is all because of Kano.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
not supposed to like Kano, and that's okay. That's why we like him.
Yeah. what's it called? When he made fun of Jax with like his first version of his arms, I was
Yeah,
like,
his little
"Oh,
T-Rex
come
hand."
on, man. Like, listen, Jax had a bad day. You didn't have to
Yeah.
rub it in, man. Come on, leave him alone.
I
Just
like when they're
whenever
walking in the
Kano walks
desert.
in, he looks at the biggest guy in the room, says something stupid, and gets knocked on his ass, and that happens like 15 times, and it works every time. It makes me laugh every time it happens.
What are you gonna say, Andrew?
I like when they're all who was it again? It was Cole, Kano, and then the girl. What was her name?
Sonya.
Sonya.
Sonya. Yeah.
Sonya.
When they're all walking in the desert and he just won't shut up, and even
Yeah.
like they were getting annoyed, and even I was getting annoyed, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Kano, just shut up!" But I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's actually doing a great job playing this character." Even I'm getting pissed off at this guy.
Yeah.
That scene where they're in the desert also has like what I think is maybe not the stupidest moment, but one that I keep noticing every time I see it again. And it's just the introduction of Liu Kang, how he just walks up to them, shoots a fireball at them, and then immediately goes, "I'm not your enemy," while Kano is on fire.
Yeah, I forgot about
It's like,
that.
what? It's like, no, Liu Kang, the other way around. You say, "I'm not your enemy," and then you shoot a fireball at him.
It
They're
was
going to get the wrong idea.
it was definitely one of those things. I was like, what? Like, it was also another thing. I was like, Lou, like, how long have you been waiting for them? Like in the desert, just like, all right, they said they'd be here definitely like an hour ago. Like, it's like, come on, man. So they, they're doing their whole training thing. What's his face? Kano finds his Arcana, right? His laser eye, which is a great scene, hilarious. Meanwhile, over in Villainsville, we have Shang Tsung, who I'll be honest, I was very disappointed they didn't bring him back, our boy, the original actor. But I get why they didn't. I understand.
He would have done it. He loves that role.
Oh no, he does. He even did it for the web series Mortal Kombat Legacy.
Yes, that too.
So he gathers his villains, and we get Cabal, and we see some other people. It was like General Raiko and
Natara, Cabal,
yes.
and I think there was like one other.
I think
Cabal
Cabal
die.
I think Cabal looks great in this movie. Like they got the costume
really
down really, really well. And the whole relationship dynamic, like when they started talking to each other, I was crying, bro, between Cabal and Kano. It was so funny. And I think they nailed Cabal as a character down pretty good as well. So they do the whole attack thing, and then Jax awakens his Arcana, and he gets like his robot arms. And it was just like, whatever, I guess, sort of thing.
Yeah.
like I feel like they really tried to make it emotional about Jax, which if I had my arms like frozen off, I'm sure I'd be a little traumatized, of course. But I don't know. I feel like the whole dynamic, because they were trying to build that with Sonya, was a little underdeveloped. How'd you all feel about Jax and Sonya?
There's a lot going on in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you can like the emotional aspect of Jax losing his arms.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really get that because he was kind of thrown in, and you only got to see him for the first like 2 minutes, 3 minutes before he actually loses them.
Right.
If they had just completely gotten rid of Cole and put it more like as a story for Jax, made Jax the main character.
Right.
Maybe then you can see like his family and his backstory, and then when he loses the arms, there's more of an emotional connect.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have stuck a lot more, but since he was just thrown in and you only got to see like a few minutes of him, and then he loses his arms, you don't really get that emotional, like sad part of the movie.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, he lost his arms, and I guess this is how he's going to get his powers.
Yeah. I did feel like the whole brawl in like the training grounds or whatever was fun. Like I did have fun with it, barring the whole Goro with Cole thing, because Cole, being the cardboard he is, he was just like, I can't do this. I'm going home. And it's like, oh God, come on, man. How'd you all feel about that fight scene? I know we talked about how Kung Lao's kill was sick, but did you like any of the fights there?
Don't remember a whole lot beyond that.
Yeah, honestly.
I agree. So we have Raiden. He teleports them all out. Of course, Kung Lao gets... did he get killed or get captured? I forget when he was defending Cole. I don't remember.
I I thought he got killed.
Yeah,
said
I
Kung
want to
Lao?
say it was killed. Yeah, Kung Lao.
I think he got killed. I believe he
Yeah.
got killed.
It's okay.
Lupanga.
We'll see him in a sequel. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, he's coming back.
Yeah,
100%.
they always do. So Raiden saves them. Then Cole like makes this whole plan to neutralize Sub-Zero, and I don't know. It turns into this. Let's be honest. It just turns into this whole thing where they start fighting each other again, and then it turns into an extended scene between Cole and Sub-Zero, and then Scorpion kind of comes in. So I don't know. I felt like the fight where it finally turns into Scorpion and Sub-Zero was really good. I was really kind of just bored with the whole Sub-Zero versus Cole thing because it's just like it's like an adult beating up a kid. It's like Cole really stood a chance. Like I don't really get any fun out of this, but I don't know. Like I felt like the third act in general, it turned into so much action that my brain kind of just turned off and my eyes glazed over.
It was like
all right.
a second and a half act, and then it ended. It was
Yeah.
the plotting gets very strange after Kung Lao dies.
Yeah, it was.
They like meditate for like 2 minutes, and then it's just right back into the same type of action scene we just left, and then the movie's over.
Yeah, it was very, very strange. Austin and Mark, I'm sure you guys saw it in a theater, right? How'd you all feel about this whole like second and a half or third act or whatever, where it was just like one long action scene of everything?
I mean, I actually watched it on HBO Max.
Same, yeah.
By that point, I was very much in the bag, so it's just like, all right, they're punching. And at that point, that's all I really wanted to get out of it.
Right.
But I mean, it's again, it comes down to being just a weird approach for a movie where it's very clearly made to be like, it's like if they made a prequel but made it first.
Right.
Where you look at it, it's like there's not even really a confrontation with our main villain. Like Shang Tsung is barely in it,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't fight him at the end. It's like, yeah, there's the Scorpion Sub-Zero thing, but like that's the closest we get to a climax.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of goes along, and then by the end of the movie, they're like, all right, Mortal Kombat's gonna happen soon.
Yeah.
Roll credits, and it's like, oh well,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
Austin, what were you going to say, man? Seems like you have a lot to say about this whole last sequence, so to speak.
It really solidified my disappointment with everything.
That's great.
There were hope, I mean, this is also when Sub-Zero stopped being the awesome thing he had been so far, and got a little, things got a little, I don't know, maybe not silly, I don't know about campy, but something went wrong with that portrayal that was working really well thus far. And then, of course, at the end, the way they're just like, well, that Mortal Kombat is going to happen. We'll get ready for Mortal Kombat 2 when the Mortal Kombat actually happens. And that was upsetting.
Uh-huh.
That was... and at this point of the movie, I realized that Cole is an original character. And I was upset. I'm like, who is he? Are they just revamping Johnny somehow? Nope. Yeah. It's a completely new person. And I got underwhelmed very quickly.
Yeah.
In this last bit. And it was, I mean, can I say if I like this movie better than the 95 one? It's close because of this last bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How'd you feel, Andrew, about this whole last action sequence overall?
The same way I felt when I saw Justice League when that came out. And who was the first director?
Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
We saw the Whedon cut, and it was like a letdown. And then you see like the preview at the very end, or like the last scene shows like the poster and everything like that, and there's definitely a sequel coming out, and you have a feeling like, oh, I wish we just waited for the Zack Snyder cut. Like we just waited another few years before the next movie, because I feel like they are definitely going to be putting in a lot more work in the next movie. Possibly, maybe they're gonna. I have no idea, but almost like a little bit of disappointment, but I was still pretty happy because it was better than the old ones. As
Right.
funny and hilarious as the old ones were, I still had fun with this movie, but it definitely at the end, like just the ending was kind of disappointing, like what Austin
Mhm.
said.
Yeah, I actually agree with all. Like the only thing to me that I thought was like legitimately good was the fight between Scorpion and Sub Zero. But like, of course it is because the two actors doing that are not only like really good actors, but also I'm pretty sure both trained martial artists. So it looks really good. And like I had fun. Don't get me wrong, but like I definitely started to glaze over. It's like okay, like this kind of just we're just throwing everything at the screen now, I guess. Um, and then, of course, they have to end it by basically giving us all the middle finger, and we're just like, "Oh yes, Mortal Kombat is coming. We better get more people." Yeah, I heard Johnny Cage is free. It's like, oh come
Yeah.
on, guys! Like, don't remind me about the missed opportunity at the end of the movie,
Yep.
sort of thing.
Johnny Cage is just right over there
Yeah, it's like,
behind the credits.
Within
oh
your
god,
grasp.
yeah. Um, yeah. So I don't really have too much else to say about this movie. Do you guys have anything else you want to point out, whether it be the score, the cinematography, before we get to our closing thoughts and final ratings?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So Austin, then you go first, man. Give us your closing thoughts and final rating.
All right. Uh, like I was saying, this this is a franchise that I enjoy. Is it one that I have encyclopedic knowledge of? No, I have a good time with it, and it didn't have the cinematic presence of it is not something that is very nuanced or even explored. So okay, I go into this movie with just excitement to see Mortal Kombat on screen and see what they do with it. It could be fun, it could be gory, who knows? Maybe I'll see people I like, and that in that way, this movie failed.
Mm-hmm.
Where it didn't give me a Mortal Kombat in my Mortal Kombat movie. There was no Mortal Kombat, not yet. That's the next movie, uh, which is annoying. Uh, that specifically is where this movie falters. Was it higher budget than the previous ones? Yes, it was probably. I could probably definitively say it was better made, but I was ultimately. I had a very okayish response. I didn't like that they had an original character. I think it was really unnecessary. That took away, and the departures from what I wanted also took away. I think I think I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a 2 Elder Gods out of 5.
Ooh.
Two
And
Elder
I
Gods
just
out of 5.
that's right, not the whole council, but just the two. I wanted. I think this could have been if it had embraced what it was and didn't try to catch me up on things I probably didn't even need to know about
Right.
and insert a character that didn't need to be there at all. This could have been a good time. This could have been what I think everyone expected it to be,
Right.
at the least. So that's what I have to say.
Final rating.
Two Elder Gods out of
Two
5.
Elder Gods out of 5. Yes, I forgot that you went with Elder God rating this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what are you talking about, Adam? That's what I always give it.
Andrew, how about you, man? Final closing thoughts and final rating.
Was it better made than the old ones? I would say yes. Should it have been made though? I would say not really.
Mm.
Was it fun for the people that love the games? Yes, I thought it was fun. Transformers movies are fun. Fast and Furious movies are fun. Are they forgettable? Absolutely. This movie was definitely forgettable. Um,
Yeah.
I had a struggle just remembering any real like scene that stuck outside of the Kano and Sub Zero scenes.
Right.
Anyone that doesn't like Mortal Kombat, I really don't recommend you going to see this, and that's saying a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
I don't really have a need to go see this movie again. It's a one and done.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do I regret seeing it? No, but I don't really recommend anyone seeing this after I saw it. If you're a fan
Right.
of the games, go ahead. You'll definitely have fun, but you're gonna feel the same way that I do and everyone else here. I give it a 5 out of 10. 5 because it was fun. It wasn't horrible, like I wanted to tear my eyes out like every M Night Shyamalan movie ever made, but it was definitely nothing to remember and nothing that gave me hope for seeing the sequel. So 5 out of
So what?
10.
So what you're saying is we're gonna review a M Night Shyamalan movie next, right?
I'm sure there has to be a good one.
There is. It's called The Sixth Sense.
Or the
I like Split.
the
I like
Signs.
Split.
Signs is good too. Signs is good.
I like Split.
As long as you don't review The Last Airbender, I'm not doing that.
No,
No, I
I'm
refuse.
not doing
No.
I
that.
refuse.
no.
That is not welcome in this house.
Yes.
You
No,
couldn't
no.
get me to
I'm
go
not-
see that if I was drunk. Hell no.
No.
That was
But
the
5
worst
out of 10, right? Right, Andrew? 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10, correct.
Okay. All right, Mark. How about you, man?
2 out of 5. It's not offensively bad. There's parts of it that I liked, but not enough to say that I liked the movie overall.
Mhm.
It's just kind of bland and kind of middling, and it's not one of those like, oh, that was such a terrible movie, I hated it, but also it's like I would probably unironically rather watch the 95 one. At least that one's like stupid in a fun way.
Right.
If you want a good Mortal Kombat cinematic experience, play through the story modes of 9, 10, and 11.
Yep.
Because they're basically just movies, but every 2 minutes you fight somebody. Look up the cutscenes if you don't like fighting games. It'll give you the gist of what Mortal Kombat, at least modern Mortal Kombat, is about. There's some twists and turns, there's some fun characters, and it gets goofier and more ambitious than this movie cared to. So
Mm-hmm.
it was fine, but I'm kind of glad I didn't pay money to see it.
I hear you, man. It's funny, like when I first saw this movie, and immediately after, I was like, "Wow, I had a lot of fun." And I at that point, I had given it a full price. Like I was just like, I had a lot of fun with this. Objectively, terrible movie, not good at all, but I had a lot of fun. And as time has gone on, I have just realized that I have zero desire to ever watch it again. And like there are other movies that I've seen where like objectively they're not good, but I would totally love to watch them again. Like I'm looking at you, Warriors of Virtue. Like anyone ever wants to watch that, I'm totally down. Yon is back, Yon is back.
Yon is back.
But like with this one, now that we've all kind of broken it down, it's like the fact that I had to have the Wikipedia article up just so I could even remember what happened in the movie is really bad. There's some cool things. Like I think a lot of the costume designs are legitimately good. Scorpion, Sub-Zero, even some of the stuff like Raiden and Cabal. Kano's hilarious in this movie. There are some good things in it, and like if you really turn your brain off, I think you'll have a good time. Just to see like the Kano talk shit and to see the action scenes, but otherwise, like it's really not that good of a movie. I know I originally have it on my letterbox as a full price, but really thinking on it now, like this is a rental, like a very, very low rental. Like if you're a fan, watch it. But otherwise, like you're not really missing too much. I'll be honest. Like I had a lot of fun with it. But I know I will have zero desire to ever watch this ever again.
It doesn't really.
Oh,
it doesn't really like justify its existence because it's not better at being Mortal Kombat than the video games. It's not as stupid as Annihilation. It's not as campy as the 95 one, and it's not as good an adaptation as the animated one. So it's like, I guess we got Cole Young out of this. That's that's our legacy takeaway.
Yeah, and I do
at least we have Cole Young.
At least we got Cole and his Tompas out of this one.
Yeah.
I do want to echo what Mark said, though, that if you are interested in this franchise, I encourage you to play the games Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat X, Mortal Kombat 11, including the expansion Mortal Kombat Aftermath. I also really encourage you to watch the animated movie Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge. That's like a legitimately good adaptation of the games. Not saying it's like the greatest movie of all time or something, but like if you don't want to play the games and just want to watch what happened, that's a pretty good summary overall. But Austin, I think you're going to say something. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, Adam, are you suggesting that your letterbox is inaccurate?
I'm suggesting that opinions can change over time. Who would have thought?
Well, you adapt it so the people that follow you can know where you stand.
Oh God, I don't know if I want to put that much effort into my letterbox.
I just did it. I just did the same. I saw that I rated it a 3, but I'm going back and giving it a 2 because that's how I feel right now. That's what it deserves.
I might do an edit. I'll edit my review and be like, upon further introspection, I've come to this conclusion or something like that.
I would do it for the fans. Yeah.
For the fans, you're right,
Yeah.
Austin. Also, shout outs to Letterboxd, of course. If any of you want to follow us on Letterboxd, we'll have that in the descriptions. Don't you worry.
Sure.
But anyway, let's wrap this stuff up. Any shout outs you want to give? Words you want to say to the people, Austin? If they want to follow you, what should they do? All that good stuff.
Nada. I am a private entity. Please leave me alone. I know I've mentioned various usernames across this podcast, but don't do that.
No shout outs you want to give though?
Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Mark. Shout out to Andrew. hope I can talk to them soon. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play some MK. Let's play some Injustice.
Hey, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
How about you, Andrew? Any shout outs you want to give? The words you want to say to the people? How can people follow you? All that stuff.
Mark took the words right out of my mouth. I'm ready to fuck shit up with Mark and Austin. Let's get a night going. Let's get a fun beer night going with some games. I'm down to play these games. Yeah. Shout out to Austin for making it on.
Hell yeah. And finally, Mark, you?
No, got nothing to follow me on. I guess I don't know. Shout out to Evo. Evo's coming up.
Evo.
Hell yeah.
Skullgirls, finally, it's their time. It's their moment in the sun. Finally.
Well, I dusted off some Skullgirls. I've been having a good time with it.
I got to get back into it. Fucking Eliza. We should absolutely play some Skullgirls.
Hey, Fighters Fiesta 2021.
Yes. No, actually, yes. I will. Yes, let's do Fighters Fiesta.
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
I've never played this game before.
Oh God. Well, we better start planning Fighters Fiesta, so we got to go, folks. I want to, of course, give a shout out to all of you who have either watched this video or listened. Thank you so much. You could be doing anything in the world, but you choose to listen to us talk about this horrible movie for almost an hour and a half now. So really appreciate all of you. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_bomb with 2 M's. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube, follow us on Spotify, all that good stuff, because we'll be doing more reviews as always. But other than that, take care of yourselves and peace.
Boy.